Good evening, everyone. It is just a pleasure to see you all here. I will tell you anecdotally, I also exercise in this room, so if you really get the urge to just, kind of do a couple of leg lifts or something like that, go right ahead. We're used to it. This is Lucy Stern, and this room, it gets used for almost everything. One of the things that I've been asked to let you know beforehand that there is some wonderful food that is here. I want to tell you about it now because it probably is the most appropriate time to let you know. From the Corner Bakery, from Ada's, from Phil's, from Piazza's Market, from Paris Baguette, and from the Prolific Oven, a huge thank you to the people who donated the food from tonight. It is great to have all of you here. This is the State of the Address. And tonight we're going to begin with the Brownie Troop number 60635 and the Junior Scout Troop number 60754 from Walter Hayes Elementary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do you want a mic? Do you want a mic to do it?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Terrific job. Thank you very much to both Girl Scout troops. Thank you so much for doing that. So tonight we're looking forward to listening to our mayor, Nancy Shepherd, deliver the State of the City address and invite all of you to stay for a reception immediately afterward. Before I call out some of the people in the room, as I remember the history of the State of the City, I'm reasonably sure that Councilmember Klein would claim that he began this and has, am I right, Councilmember Klein, 1983 or 4? Oh, it was later. So this is about 15 years. Most years it's been delivered by the mayor. A couple of times it's been delivered by the city manager. But this is a wonderful opportunity tonight to hear how the city is, how we're doing, and hopefully we'll hear from you all later about how you feel we are doing as a city. So before we get started, let me tell you who is here tonight. As electeds, and if I miss somebody, just somebody call it out and I will pick up on that. And so maybe you can use the one clap rule as they stand up and are acknowledged. Corey Walbach from Senator Jerry Hill's office, right back there. Jeremy Dennis from Assemblymember Rich Gordon's office, right back there. Tyler Haskell, who is Joe Simitian's aide from the Board of Supervisors, back there. Ann Ream from Congresswoman Anna Eshu's office, Lainey Wheeler, former mayor, and with that, because that's the list I have so far, if I missed anyone, and if so, would you just pop up so we could recognize you? Good, okay, thank you so much. So, what I'd like to do now is introduce Rachel Cassie, a teacher at Palo Alto High School, and also who happens to be Mayor Shepherd's daughter, and who'll have the honor of introducing her mother tonight. And I believe that Becca's also going to join her up here. So there's a note at the top that I like. Rachel is the oldest and Becca is the youngest. So why don't you join me up here now and I can say something about you. Becca Shepherd lived in Palo Alto for 18 years. And since Nancy and Mark moved to Palo Alto in 1984, Becca's about to pursue her MBA at Duke University. That one is Becca. Rachel teaches at Palo Alto High School. Are you at Pali?
I am.
Oh, at Pali, and has taught in the school district now for almost 10 years. So would you welcome them warmly? Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Liz. Good evening. So we'd really just like to take a moment to thank someone that's very dear to us, Mom. Well, many of you know Nancy Shepherd as a member of the City Council and now as the mayor. We obviously know her as our mother. So we'll give you a little background. Our parents moved here 30 years ago
just a few months before I was born, and she had 3 other kids, 2 boys in between us, and Rachel was the oldest.
So our mom has always been extremely active as we were growing up. She instilled that civic responsibility in us a long time ago. She started her career in Palo Alto as a member of the PTA, and you became president of the Palo Alto City Council of PTAs, and she actually was a key member in the district-wide fundraising for the Palo Alto schools. I believe it's now called PI.
So I'm sure some of you know this, but raising 4 children is pretty tough, but I'm pretty sure this has prepared her for the year ahead as being mayor, enabling how challenging that is, and empathy and energy that she can bring from being a mother and being a community member to the city.
Our mom cares deeply about Palo Alto, as you can tell from the brief history we've explained. She believes one of the things actually that makes this community so great is the people. The people care about maintaining the quality of life here. She still appreciates all those things that brought her and then my dad here back in 1984. Tremendous opportunities is what Palo Alto provides, neighborhood connections, and a wonderful place to raise a family. So, as a proud daughters,
we have the honor to introduce you to Mayor Nancy Shepherd.
Yeah!
Well, thank you, daughters. I really literally wouldn't be here without them. So, and hang on, I haven't done it with the mics yet. So here we are in the Lucy Stern Ballroom, circa 1933. This was the first project that Lucy donated to the Palo Alto community. At a 1932 City Council meeting, her friend, Burge Clark, announced that an anonymous donor was gifting a community center to the city. Interestingly, when Lucy made her final donation to this center, the Children's Library, a council member felt there needed to be an endowment gift for staffing costs. So Lucy withdrew her offer. Shocked, the council member apologized and agreed that maintenance costs would be absorbed by the city and be included in the library commission budget. Today, the Children's Library has been expanded and updated, and the gardens and center have provided decades of enjoyment. I'm sure all of us in this room have been here for some occasion. My memories of this building include weddings, exercise classes, holiday parties, fundraisers, and more held here, each with their own elegance and cheer. Now, to the State of the City address. In so many ways, our city is having the best of times. 91% of residents consider the quality of life in our city to be good to excellent. 99% consider Palo Alto a good place to work. We are ranked #1 most livable city of our size in America. We've received the award for excellence for innovation in local government by the Alliance for Innovation. The Center for Digital Government found us the #1 digital city for cities under 75,000. We have been recognized for open budget and year-end financials. We've won the Beacon Award for statewide leadership in advancing climate change solutions and greenhouse gas reductions. Our home values have increased 46% in the last 5 years. Commercial vacancy rates are at all-time lows, and values have soared between $900 and $1,100 per square foot. City revenues are increasing to normal after the Great Recession, and many of the long overdue projects on city aging infrastructure repair lists are getting fixed with a major infrastructure funding plan under consideration. Yet, Palo Alto finds itself dealing with the unintended consequences of success that are challenging quality of life and viewed by some as the worst of times. Regional traffic increases, local parking problems, disappearing opportunities to live in Palo Alto, loss of local businesses replaced by upscale trendy restaurants and shops, change, real and perceived, that seems too much too fast, anxiety about our neighborhoods, state regulation mandates that ignore local concerns, home affordability for the next generation, Can my kids live here where they grew up? I asked my daughter, my one daughter, I got both of them, to introduce me tonight to illustrate this last issue. She is a teacher at PAUSD in Palo Alto and has worked at various schools, including Walter Hayes, Terman Middle School, and is now at Palo Alto High School, her alma mater. She represents a worsening problem in Palo Alto, the struggle to find good housing close to work for our teachers, first responders, and others. Rachel and her husband are lucky. They live close by in East Menlo Park, but many of her colleagues travel long distances under heavy commutes to be ready for students. This is becoming more typical of our own city workers, with only a small percentage living in Palo Alto. But Palo Alto has always wrestled with change across the decades. In the 1870s, Mrs. Alexander Pierce declared the times to be the most prosperous decade for Mayfield, a grain and lumber town. But change was in the air, and soon the grain fields that had supplied food for the gold rush population were taken over by orchards, much to the lamentation of the locals. And then in 1891, Stanford opens its doors to its first incoming freshman class, and the university soon transformed Palo Alto and the surrounding area forever. In the 1930s, Professor Frederick Terman, known as the father of Silicon Valley, transitioned the radio electronic studies at Stanford into the electrical engineering department. He challenged Bill Hewlett and David Packard to use their engineering skills beyond their formal education, and long before Stanford University developed the industrial park in 1951. We all know what happened with Hewlett and Packard after that. It's also instructional to learn about what challenges were facing the community during these times. Let's listen to what Professor Terman had to say in 1969 in an interview for Palo Alto's 75th anniversary.
I'd like to ask you, now in retrospect, do you think this industrialization that has taken place in the Palo Alto area is a good thing? We hear sometimes that we are being overcome, the charm of the city of Palo Alto is being lost. What would you say to this?
Well, there's certainly lots of complaints about things and objections to changes and the like. But interesting thing, you find that particularly in the last 25 years, when this growth and changes have come about, you find that in that period, the people who came to Palo Alto, irrespective when they came, always liked the town the way it was when they arrived. If they came here 20 years ago, they loved the Palo Alto of that time, and they complain about the changes and the increased traffic and the more land being built on and so on. If they came here 5 or 8 or 10 years ago, they like it that way, and they're perfectly content. And the fact that each new group of, you might say, immigrants that come here and settle down in Palo Alto like the town the way it was when they arrived, even if they only arrived fairly recently, means that it can't all be bad.
I think you've answered my question beautifully. Thanks so much for being with us.
The television technology leaves something to be desired, but it sounds awfully familiar. You might say Palo Alto is in a continuing conversation about growth, development, and change. Hewlett-Packard were followed by Fairchild, whose young engineers included Bob Noyce, who invented integrated circuits down on Charleston Road, and his co-worker Gordon Moore, the author of Moore's Law, and both co-founders of Intel. These and others helped fuel the growth of the tech industry. This is the setting and the attitude which brought most of us here, and which continues to shape our community and drive our future. Our city, Palo Alto, and the world itself has been trying to keep up ever since. In this dynamic environment, great opportunities and success has occurred. It brings with it inevitable problems and challenges too. Today, I would like to report in this state of the city that the Palo Alto adventure continues much as it has before. We are successful, prosperous, and constantly changing. But there are those who may perceive this change as fundamentally altering some of the reasons why they chose to live here in Palo Alto. While the university or tech sector jobs may have brought many of us here for a great adventure, it is our neighborhoods, open space, and the quality of our schools that have been at the heart of what defines Palo Alto. And we want to protect and maintain all of these things. But the pace of our vibrant economy and the local and regional impacts it creates causes many of us to worry about the future, much like those throughout our town's history. Like those before us, we must strike the right balance between evolving as a city while maintaining those things that make our Palo Alto livable. The City Council work plan for 2014 has more than 30 substantive items that we must address. They cover issues involving land use and transportation, infrastructure, finance, the environment. We will be tackling the supply of parking, our housing element, the California Avenue streetscape construction, Cubberley, compost facilities, golf course reconfiguration in the San Francisco Creek project, labor negotiations, and much more. And this list doesn't even cover things like the drought or how that will impact our city or other issues that may emerge during the year. There is a lot to do in 2014, and we will need to stay focused and be decisive on moving our work plan forward. But we also want to create opportunities for conversation about the important ideas and solutions for our community. The council needs the participation of as many Palo Altans as possible in charting a course for our future. We are calling this Our Palo Alto, a community conversation about our city's future. It begins with ideas, and we know Palo Alto loves ideas. We will have both formal and informal methods to gather community thinking through a series of conversations, events, and workshops. I know that when I am at events in the community or talking with neighbors, I am often asked similar questions like, why do we have to be part of ABAG? And what can we do about parking? What can you do about parking? They want to know what I'm going to do. How come projects are built right up to the sidewalk? I hope that we can have these conversations beyond City Hall, in our neighborhoods, and in creative and fun ways. How about a picnic in the park to talk about the update of our master plan for parks and recreation and open space? That's on our work plan. How about a bike ride to check out a proposed route as part of our bike path? That too is on our work plan. A gathering at someone's house or neighborhood center. Also, as we talk about our Palo Alto, inevitably your Palo Alto will emerge as an important part of our conversation. What brings you here? When did you know this was the place for you? What are you thinking and feeling about the future? These are not trivial questions. They are the foundation of how we move ahead together as a community. Keeping what we've loved most, fixing what has gone off track, and building solutions for our future. We have cards available here tonight, as well as a form on our website that we would love to have you share with us. This is just the beginning. That said, I'd like to exercise mayoral privilege and start my Palo Alto. What brought me here to Palo Alto? It was 1984, just as my kids said. We had 3 kids, and one was on the way. And my husband worked for Intel, so we wanted to live closer to his job. It's important to note here that we did not have careers in tech sector. My husband was finishing law school and was recruited to Intel's tax department, while I was a chief operations officer and later a controller for operating businesses. This will make more sense later in my story. We found a house we loved, which we could afford in Palo Alto, even though we knew we could have a larger yard in Menlo Park or Los Altos. But Palo Alto looked good to us, so we started our adventure. It took a few years for me to realize that Palo Alto was the place for me. I was overwhelmed by how groomed many yards were and how well educated other parents were. I felt intimidated. At parent gatherings, I would ask others what they did and often got responses like, studies smashed atoms, the liquidity of matter, or the property of bacteria when light first hits it. So I stopped asking that question. and just enjoyed how family-oriented this community was. And while my neighborhood has changed over the years, the essence remains. We have a good neighborhood watch program. Our block parties attract over 100 neighbors and children and dogs. I can still knock on a neighbor's door and ask for a cup of sugar or an egg when I forget something in a recipe. And when I was having a hard time once, my neighbor planted my flower bed for me. This is what my Palo Alto feels like. And I'm guessing many of you view your neighborhood in a similar way. As the ideas in our community conversations percolate, we are still moving forward on a number of near-term actions that we can complete or make significant progress on this year. We have started on some of these already. Residential parking permit programs, planned community zoning review, parking management. Other actions will include an updated housing element, the Cubberly lease, and more. These actions are not easy. And we may have a tendency to revert back to our Palo Alto process as a delay tactic. So we need your help to keep us moving forward. This is where your ideas and participation will help inform the council's decisions. Because as council members, we need to make decisions and vote on policies to address these often difficult issues. The final piece of our Palo Alto initiative is the design phase. That aims to update our comprehensive plan to serve as a blueprint for the future. We will build on the work done by the Planning and Transportation Commission to update our plan that serves as a guide to inform future land use and development-related issues. All of this work is related to the Council's 2014 priorities that were recently adopted at our retreat, which are comprehensive planning and action on land use and transportation, the built environment, transportation, mobility, parking, and livability, infrastructure strategy and funding, technology and the connected city. Some of this will be shaped by committee work. We are counting on Council Member Mark Berman as chair of the Finance Committee this year to lead the committee's work in next year's budget, utility items, the refuse pilot, and city audits, and much more, with Council Members Pat Burt, Karen Holman, and Vice Mayor Liz Niss. Council Member Gail Price will chair the Policy and Services Committee, with Council Members Greg Schmidt, I call them Greg and Greg because I get their names wrong sometimes, Greg Schmidt, Greg Scharf, and Larry Klein. This committee tackles policy questions and key issues as they emerge. Council Member Greg Schmidt will be chairing what I consider the most difficult committee this year, the Regional Housing Mandate Committee, with Council Members Karen Holman, Gail Price, and Greg Scharf, 2 school board members, and 1 Planning and Transportation Commissioner. Their work will be to search for additional housing unit zoning locations. And this kicks off later this week on the 13th. Good luck. Thank you. And this year, we have initiated a new concept for council called the Committee of the Whole. The idea is that the full council will be able to address tough issues in a more in-depth way, much like the work of a subcommittee, while allowing for additional community feedback and input. Yes, there are challenges ahead, and those will continue. I can promise that. But many of the issues we will tackle together as a community are born of this incredible Palo Alto adventure, this transformation into a global city with neighborhoods that are still connected. So this is our Palo Alto. Thank you for coming to the State of the City address. Appreciate this.